Hey, Jack. All right. You got this stuff?
Yeah. All cleaned in oil.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's get it on.
Who are these guys?
It's my theme music. Every good hero should have some.
Hot damn, it's time to get down to the jam. It's time to get down, it's time to get down, it's time to get down to the jam. I said it's time to get down to the knowledge, gonna get on down with the know. On the morning coffee show, on morning coffee with Keith, here on Pop Culture Minefield.
Excuse me, can I get a cup of coffee? Black? Can't you see we talking? White?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our humble little show.
Good morning.
How are you? How are you guys?
I'm doing all right. Getting ready to run my first video D&D game this weekend.
Nice. Oh, really?
Yeah. So we're gonna tape it and release it in segments because 4 hours is just way too long to watch one episode.
How about you, Martin? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fine.
That's it.
Making, yeah. I'm busy making show things behind the curtain that I hadn't ready yet. So sorry. Hello, everybody.
Pay all attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah. No. In fact, that is not a curtain. You're mistaken. Don't look there.
There's nothing to see here.
Move along. Well, I got to tell you, this is for those of us that are just fans of really just general pop culture type stuff. This has been a rough 24 to 48 hours. When you've enjoyed as much as I have and have become a fan of so many film and television shows and other things, it's a given that you become attached to certain performers, actors, actresses who have played characters that have affected your life. We find ourselves really spending, in many cases, as much time with these characters, watching them and enjoying them as we do, family and friends. And it sometimes makes it pretty difficult when real life intrudes and something happens. And in this particular case, this young man who was just a really solid actor. I really enjoyed a lot of his performances. I would occasionally watch episodes of the show that brought him to prominence, even though I was not the target audience for the show. I was way too old to enjoy it. I did enjoy parts of it and noticed that at least one of the actors on the show was somebody who I was a big fan of. but that would be John Wesley's ship. But learning of the passing of James Van Der Beek caused a little bit of a pause for me, because he's one of those guys that I just found him to be solid every single time with every single performance I saw him in. I enjoyed him in Varsity Blues, and of course, for me, it was really cool to see him in Kevin Smith's movie, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which showed that he had an incredible sense of humor. But the reason why I am bringing this up is because he had announced that he was fighting a cancer battle. And that's something personal for me. I was really pulling for him and his family. And it seemed like things took a turn. And he's now no longer with us. And I just want to say that hello, awesome one. And yes, 100 years. I don't look it. I just want to say that
I mean, they're only off by a little more than half, or a little less than half.
yes, they're off by a little bit. But I just want to say that first of all, to his wife and children, who I personally didn't know that much about his personal life. I didn't realize he had that many kids, and they're all young. So that's going to be the tough part for them. They're going to have to live their lives without their dad.
Yeah.
And from what I can tell, he really fought. He really fought this. And I just want to say that, first of all, thank you for being so entertaining, James. I am sorry to hear that you're no longer around, and to his fans and his family, I just want to express my condolences, and I'll probably sometime today check out another one of his movies. I did learn of a few films that I didn't realize that he was in, so I may go check those out. But being young as he was, and he was young compared to me. I mean, he was 48 years old, and that's too young,
Yeah.
But also, it reminds all of us that we need to really look into our health. We need to be doing everything possible to have ourselves in a routine where we can meet with our primary care physician and get ourselves checked out as often as possible. We cannot really afford to have anything happen. I mean, I would rather not see anything happen to anybody at all, especially to this scourge called cancer. I have a hard-on hate for cancer, and to be honest, even before I lost my mom, I lost quite a few people to this. And it's always been something that I believe that we really need to be spending our time dedicated to making sure that we just root out what this is and defeat it. It's got to go, you know. And I think we're getting closer.
Yeah,
But
there's been a lot of, because my mom dealt with breast cancer in '99, and she survived it
fantastic.
with, but there was a state representative in Texas that was going through it at the same time, who helped her, get the treatment she needed, who did not survive it.
Wow.
So yeah, it was quite the journey for her.
Yeah. I'm happy that your mom survived that. That's fantastic, dude.
In her case, it was dementia that took her. So there's another one that we need to fight. But
yeah. Oh. Wow. So Gambit, it's up there. James Vanderbeek dubbed the character Pazu in English for Miyazaki's Castle in the Sky. Wow.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And Real Wade, I am in agreement on John Carter being best sci-fi movie.
awesome one.
I wouldn't go that far, but okay.
Wow. Awesome one. I am sorry to hear that. It is tough. You know, I was there with my mom, and I know what you're going through.
Yeah, same. It was rough because when she was about to go, her husband was up here because she originally lived in Oklahoma. We moved her up here, and at one point I had to tell her, had to tell him, look, you were here. She knew you were here, but you still have you still have a life you have to live. And I had to tell him, look, it's go ahead and go home. I'm here for her. And that's a tough call to make,
Yeah.
There's a lot of tough calls, hospice and shit like that. So
yeah.
It's Anima.
Hello, Anima. It is I would not wish that on anybody. It's just we gotta get this. We just gotta get this.
Yeah. And fortunately there's a lot of research going on it, a lot of progress being made. My mom got to go through a new treatment when she dealt with hers, things that would have killed her in the past. So
yeah.
And the only thing we can do when faced with something like this is find a way to press on and remember them. Not a day goes by that I don't think about my mom, that I don't think about my friend Angie. She died of cancer just a couple years ago, or about a year or so ago. And we have to keep them alive and, keep them with us, keep that spirit with us.
Just for the record, Mr. Vanderbeek was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. As I said before, especially when you get to a certain age. I know I've run across people that have told me that it's been quite a while since they've been to the doctor. I beg you, get yourself checked out.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a fight that if you don't have to fight it, don't.
Yeah.
Just don't. You don't want any of this. We can be strong for those who are fighting it, but if you don't have to fight this, don't.
Yeah, if you can head it off at the pass, do so.
Yeah. Because this is not something that you really want any of it. And yeah. So yeah. Having said all of that, let's begin our celebration of the 100th anniversary of science fiction. This year is going to be kind of cool. I said back in January, and I meant it. This is going to be a year of science fiction. It is a genre that I think, in my opinion, has become really misunderstood, and unfortunately has become dominated by the entertainment industry more so than fan interest and personal fan knowledge. Science fiction was always something that, for me growing up, it was it. It combined all the different things that I was into and allowed me to experience stories that took me away to different places and planets and introduced me to different types of characters, but always told really solid stories. And I credit really Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek for being the best introduction of that for me. I would not make the same claim with any of the things that happen to have the Star Trek name on it that's been around since 2017, because I think that's more of a I would hope to think that it's more of a parody than an honest attempt to try to tell some good stories. Because if that's what it is, be glad that I am not a professor for any of the writers on that show, because they would all get a failing grade from me. I can't believe how unbelievable, awful all of that stuff is. All of it is just awful. I think the only saving grace is the fact that legally none of this stuff we will ever really be exposed to again once Kurtzman's done.
Never say never.
No, I mean, it's catch-22. It's a legal catch-22. Anything that Secret Hideout and Alex Kurtzman came up with, they legally have rights to. Okay? It's all theirs, meaning that CBS and Paramount can't just do their own version of Discovery, Strange New Worlds, and all that stuff.
Question is, could then Kurtzman and Secret Hideout continue that on their own?
And that's the catch-22. They don't, once their contract ends, they have no rights to use anything Star Trek.
They have a right to use anything they created and anybody else could use. That's awesome.
It's strange. It's part of the reason why he's lasted so long, but it's also, it's like Mr. Rhythm said, that which makes you will also break you. And in this particular case, it's strange, but it's appropriate. It seems very fitting that Paramount really can't do anything with it because I don't think they want to give Kurtzman any more money. And Kurtzman can't use it because he'd then have to give money back to Paramount and CBS. So once all of this is done, it's done.
Oh no! Please no.
Yeah, I know. It's I know you feel bad, and in my own way, I wish I could happily say that I feel real bad, but I don't. I really don't. This has just been a cluster. This is not even really science fiction. That's the gosh awful thing about it. None of this has anything to do with science fiction.
So what makes science fiction? Let's get back onto topic here. What makes science fiction?
Well, what makes science fiction? Well, science fiction really is stories that involve can involve just about anything: mystery, adventure. It can even be dramatic, but it has a very healthy relationship with technology and with high concepts, usually scientific concepts. It's not always futuristic, but that does, play a portion in it. In fact, the book Frankenstein is considered to be the first science fiction work.
Right. Because it deals with science.
Yes.
Taking science beyond what we would here's the thing though. I mean, in that time, Shelley was really pretty close on what science could be capable of. But more importantly, Frankenstein, I think, explores the ethics of just because I can do it, should I? And I would say it makes it kind of skirts the edge of transhumanism in that it's taking what can we do with the human body to enhance the human experience? How can we transcend death? That may not have been Frankenstein's, that may not have been Victor's whole goal. I mean, part of it, I think, was like, I'll show you. But I think that's also part of it. So Frankenstein, it showed the possibilities of the future. And it showed the ethics of, should we do this? We can, but should we? How and also this go horribly wrong?
Well, the other thing about that particular story is that its DNA is spread throughout many other stories that would come thereafter. The Island of Dr. Moreau is a good example.
Yes.
But also, stories like whether you're talking the Terminator, or whether you're talking Forbidden Planet, or even something like RoboCop.
RoboCop could be considered a modern day Frankenstein, but with a somewhat different outcome.
Yes. It's a different outcome.
He still turns on his creator, but
I would call it more the $6 million man with more than $6 million in the budget.
true.
Or
That's a slightly evolved version.
or devolved, because the $6 million man, he looked completely human. RoboCop looks like a robot with a human face.
Well, the reason why I said evolved is that I think if Dr. Frankenstein would have been able to get away with using a living person, he would have.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And thus with the $6 million man idea, it's really evolving that a little bit. Instead of using cadavers, it's living people, and instead of trying to create life, it's evolving its purpose, coming up with a way of enhancing human beings rather than just trying to create living beings. Not a lot of people know that there's a secondary title to that, though. When Mary Shelley published the book, it wasn't just called Frankenstein. Although many people who have published it call it Frankenstein, they keep forgetting the other title.
Prometheus.
The modern Prometheus.
That's right. So, and it shows that for her, I mean, taking a little bit of a cue from Greek storytelling, which again, it's something that prior to the 1950s, prior to really a lot of the 20th century, that's really where people drew a lot of their inspiration, was from those things that were known. Because again, a lot of us are all post space race babies when you really think about it. My parents were born before man ever landed on the moon.
Same here.
I should say, I wouldn't call us. Yeah, I am a space race baby, but not a moon landing, because I was born before man landed on the moon, technically. But we've done it. We've done that, and unfortunately, we're about to do it again, and we had to call that off. But I think it's been difficult for people to enjoy science fiction because, go ahead, Martin. Go ahead.
I think they are using that project for disclosure. Say, and here we are transmitting over. Oh, what is that on the surface of the moon?
Well, yeah,
I tend to think that Earth is under quarantine. There's just like Galactic Council's like, have the humans left yet? Good. Okay, no. Whatever, there's a beacon at the edge of the star system that says, quarantine, primitive, violent primitive species do not allow to escape. Do not enter. Space orcs.
Well, it's just, we're curious. We want to see beyond. I look at it this way. No matter what, things are going to get quite interesting over the next couple of decades.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I warn everybody here, it's not like there isn't this giant rock headed for us. Okay? There is one out there called Apophis. So look that one up. It's coming, kids. We need to be thinking about how we're going to do things, because it just seems like when it comes to how things are handled out there in space, and I do mean the real space, like the badger, like the honey badger, really space doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Space really doesn't care. And if we somehow survive Apophis, we really, really need to be thinking about emergency plans. What are we going to do just in case? Because if Apophis hits us, then, that's all she wrote. That pretty much is going to be an end game for us. Because this is an extinction level event with this rock. So, and the fact that there are still people who don't know about this, that shows you how seriously we've been taking it up to this point.
So yeah, originally the percentage chance that it was going to hit was like 2.7%, but it looks like thus far that actually has become a 0%. But it's a small possibility. It'll come pretty close, but yeah.
But we need to be thinking about next time, and trust me, those of us that might not be around next time, we can breathe a sigh of relief. But that just means we're kicking that can down the road for our kids, grandkids, and great grandkids, and they might not be so lucky next time. So we really need to be thinking about how we're going to do things.
Well, it did have Apophis does have the distinction of being the highest rated object on the Torino scale, which is the danger of whether or not it's going to hit Earth. It was the only thing to hit level 4 about 22 years ago.
So now we have made rated celebrity lists with rocks. Okay.
Yeah, but this is one rock that's going to be pretty unforgettable if it decides to go.
If it decides to show up.
Yeah. and actually decide to,
right,
give Earth a big bear hug.
Right. Give Earth a kiss.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, even a kiss is going to be kind of interesting.
Right.
Look, there are a lot of things between now and 30 years from now that could make things very interesting. And it's Apophis is just one of those things.
Right.
We are still overdue for a major volcanic eruption.
Oh, yeah. Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so oddly enough, yes. I wrote a book about that.
And here we go. See, we've done all this just to set Ben up. There you go, Ben.
Yeah, no, it's probably out of print. It's probably out of print right by now.
Go ahead.
Shane, well, okay, so I actually have to sell someone else's series. Shane Moore's Apocalypse of Enoch series. He had a new series called Ashfall that posited a world after the caldera blew in Yellowstone, which would basically have changed completely the climate. It would have been its own version of nuclear winter. But more importantly, the ash itself was one of the bad guys, or was going to be one of the bad guys, because basically you're covering the entire world in fine grit sandpaper. Get into everything. The other thing that I had to develop for that was workable mech technology.
Well, Japan is getting there.
Yeah, well, I had to make it man size. Basically, it was like the mech that Ripley drove in Aliens. Yeah, it was it was not my finest work, but I had like 2 months. I had from like September to the end of November, I think, to get it out.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was writing it with Shane basically giving me notes every day. Yeah, having to consult. It was one of the few times I actually got to semi-directly consult with Peter Mayhew because Shane had evidently gotten his okay to have him cameo in the book. He had a lot of celebrities that were in the book. Like I said, not my finest work, but it was an interesting. What if?
Yeah.
Especially when it blew. The moment when it blew, it would have, doing the research on it, we would have felt it here in Springfield, Missouri, to the point that it would crack foundations. Because of just the power in that caldera. But I think that falls under disaster science fiction or climate fiction.
Yep.
But science fiction, it pulls from a lot because and we've had this discussion before on the show. You have hard science fiction, which is strictly on what is, what we believe is currently accurate.
Yes.
Which, if we were going with current hard sci-fi, no faster than light travel. No certain things are simply not held to be possible.
Yeah.
But with quantum physics, certain things suddenly become almost magically delicious. Because our where we are with quantum physics, it's like, screw this. Let's just go with sheer wizard shit. I mean, it's like, two objects cannot occupy the same space, but one object can occupy two separate spaces.
Okay, but I'm not sure I would go so gallantly with that tech after seeing what the improbability engine can do.
What, two objects occupying the same space?
I botched up the name. It's the infinite probability engine.
Yeah, infinite probability. Yeah.
Improbability drive.
The improbability.
From Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, I do not want to live through that. No.
What?
Come on. You don't want to have to worry about suddenly becoming a bowl of petunias?
No. Oddly enough, no.
So here's the thing. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, while technically science fiction, is more satire.
Yep.
It is more sci-fi satire. And it is because it's, and I think that's the genius of Douglas Adams, is that, he managed to make sci-fi fun and funny, but also I think perfectly illustrate what Kay was saying in Men in Black. A person is smart. People are stupid.
Yep. And we prove that every day.
Right? Yeah.
Look, to get it all back to how we started, science fiction is a genre that has, it's very versatile. It can be combined with many other things and be just as entertaining. That's part of what has made it my favorite genre. I mean, I've read other genres and I like everything, but science fiction is definitely something that I've experienced more, read more, and enjoyed way more than just about any other. Everybody has their preferences. I just love science fiction. And it is, for this episode, though, we are really taking our cues from April of 1926 as the beginning, which is the launch of Hugo Gernsback's Amazing Stories, which will be celebrating its 100th anniversary this April. That magazine itself was really the beginning of being able to publish on a regular basis science fiction short stories. As a side note, many of one of the really cool things that Babylon 5 has over other entries, whether you're talking Star Wars or even Star Trek, is that J. Michael Straczynski found a way of even including amazing stories into what he was building with the world of Babylon 5.
Mhm.
And for a lot of you out there who have experienced Babylon 5 and finished it, if you haven't researched it, then let me give you a very special present. Within the pages of Amazing Stories, there is a short story that J. Michael Straczynski wrote that, oh man, how can I say this without spoiling too much? If you finished Babylon 5, there is a short story that concludes the story of one of the major characters within the show that you can only read by reading Amazing Stories and the short story contained therein. I know it's kind of vague, but I can't think of a way of saying who it is without spoiling too much of the plot. So it is a story that, again, if you finish Babylon 5, you're going to want to read this. Okay? You're going to want to pick it up and read it. Yeah.
Kid, go ahead. Spoil the whole thing.
Spoil.
People, I can assure you, people right now who's watching the show either has seen the show, has seen Babylon 5, so we're ready, or hasn't seen Babylon 5, so they don't care, because I don't think it's very, very, very difficult that somebody is exactly watching Babylon 5 at this moment.
Well, okay.
Right.
Look,
And
look,
bear
look,
in mind, bear in mind, Babylon 5 came out in when?
Yeah.
True.
Oh, I don't want to spoil a 30 years old show. Go ahead, dude.
Here, look, no. You're misinterpreting what I mean. Look, something that I've noticed happily since having my own Babylon 5 recap show is that there have been a lot more people within the last 2 years that have discovered the show. There are a lot more channels that have been launched that are doing watch parties for individual episodes the way that I've already done. And with new people coming in, it's easy for certain things to fall into the cracks. So, you know what? I'm at least going to give you
No.
what.
You spoiled the whole thing.
Here's what I'm going to do. The story concerns the ranger known as Marcus. And that's all I'll say.
Oh, but I think it wasn't even a novel about that.
No, well, there's no. Marcus was introduced in a book that came out between the first and second season. Okay?
No, I'm talking about his resolution arc. Finally.
Actually, that was introduced in Amazing Stories because J. Michael Straczynski wrote that for Amazing Stories. He wanted that he purposely made this short story to be printed in Amazing Stories because he wanted, he first of all, he grew up reading Amazing Stories. He believed in Amazing Stories. He is a nerd's nerd when it comes to stuff like this. And he did it on purpose. I like that. Because he didn't have to do that. He could have published it in other ways. He could have chosen other ways to get the story out there. He could have even put it online. But he chose Amazing Stories to do that. And there is history there. There's a lot of history with a lot of this stuff. And it's easy for a lot of this stuff to just get lost or forgotten about.
Right.
But for my money, I that's one of the things I really enjoyed about Babylon 5, and what makes it in many ways stand above both even Star Wars and Star Trek, which is how they treated a lot of the more important milestones and a lot of the more important venues that venues, vehicles, and other opportunities to enjoy science fiction. It wasn't just about watching TV. It was about enjoying all the other things that went with being a fan of science fiction. And for many people that are fans of Babylon 5 that are just trying to still finding things out, like that big Babylon 5 encyclopedia they put out.
Mm-hmm.
There's ways of just feeding into the fandom without just making it some sort of a loose catch grab. The way that Star Wars and Star Trek have. And there's nothing against those. I enjoy Star Wars. I really enjoyed Star Trek. But Babylon 5 embarrasses both of them because everything that gets released is about understanding and plays into the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not meant to just be, hey, I just put this random story out. It has nothing really to do with any of the movies or other things that it's connected to, but I just thought I'd put this out and you can pay a lot of money to read it, blah, 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 blah.
Well, and Babylon 5 came in with the idea of this is great. This story is going to be told over this amount of time, and then stop.
And maybe we'll reboot it in the future.
Yeah,
that wasn't part of Straczynski's original plan, though.
No, I don't. Man, I still have conflicting emotions about that plan because, for in one hand, I think B5 is perfect. Don't touch. Right. On the other hand, it's Straczynski, so he may have he knows things about what he wanted to do that we don't know. Maybe it's better, but
also in one of those hands, a guy's got to eat.
Well, here's the other thing. It looks like Straczynski's not going to be involved in the reboot,
and then don't do it.
And Warner Brothers is going to do it, which means guess what? What I should say is you can almost guarantee that Netflix is going to do it when they get their hands on Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And they won't care about the quality. They'll just do it. Yeah.
But
could be Kurtzman.
But I want to kind of to circle back around to, because here's one thing about Amazing Stories, which is where all of this gets its start.
Yes.
Amazing Stories was not originally started as highbrow sci-fi. It was pulp fiction. It was a pulp magazine. It was, and the thing is Amazing Stories has gone through several owners, a lot of editors, but this is where you affect the world, not in academia, not in this highbrow bullshit, but with stories that appeal to the common reader, because that's where you're going to get your geniuses. That is where, Einstein was a mail clerk. He wasn't, he wasn't, you don't change society by just appealing to the Ivy League or to the Ivory Towers. You change science fiction by printing a cheap magazine that anybody can read with, wildly speculative stories that are good storytelling from good writers who aren't going to be as well, we can only really do such and such and so and so. You get that from people who, come in with ink on their fingers, and sweat, and sweat on their brow, and blood on their knuckles from turning one too many wrenches. Sci-fi and anything that's going to change the way we see the world can't come from, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion as a writer, can't come from a an MFA, was it Master Fine Arts degree.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from going to cons and watching people cosplay. It comes from working a 9-to-5 job and and wanting something better.
Yeah.
And it also comes from, hey, what about because if you look at the history of Amazing Stories, the shaver mystery, I was just reading about that a little bit ago. It is just insane. Do you know the one I'm talking about, Keith?
I think I do.
Where the guy basically said, wrote in to Palmer when he was editor of Amazing Stories, going, I found a secret code that lets me decode every language. And Palmer applies it and goes, holy crap, he may be onto something. And then goes into, there's a secret extraterrestrial subterranean civilization controlling everything. It was just insane, but it made good science fiction.
Yes, it did. But that's the thing. Science fiction has provided a lot of entertainment, especially to those people in the early half of the 20th century. Mm-hmm. When you look at a lot of the key milestones, once you get past 1926, going into 1927, which was the release of Metropolis, 1939, which is considered to be the golden age,
right?
Leading us into 1968, which was Hollywood's big apex there because of the release of 2001: A Space Odyssey. But I mean, when you're looking at Amazing Stories, having a magazine really that was dedicated solely to science fiction, that's a little bit of a change considering how many magazines that had already been printed that were based on things that people already had experienced in many ways. You either had a lot of Western stories, crime stories. You had even stories that kind of were fantasy based. All of that was about really either looking at how things are or looking backwards at things. And science fiction allows you to do that, but also look forward.
Right.
And try to imagine more. And so the scale of what you had, depending on how much you really wanted to work at it, because it is work to be able to speculate. You can either create something that seemingly is, you can either have a little bit of fiction or you can have a whole lot of fiction in it.
Oh yeah.
So, go ahead.
Well, and you talk about the sheer scope of things.
Yes.
It just brought to mind H. Bean Piper. This guy had vision because he wasn't writing 100, 200 years in the future. He was writing like 6,000 years.
Yeah.
And of course Piper died in 1964. So when the Cold War was still at its, just kind of really get going. We were just kind of, putting the pedal, putting the gas to the Cold War. He posited 1973 as the first age of the first year of the atomic era.
Yeah.
But if you want to really get into the humanity of science fiction, if you have not, the Little Fuzzy novels, the Fuzzy series is one of his best known. Little Fuzzy, Fuzzy Sapiens, which was posted just right around the time of his death, and Fuzzies and Other Peoples, which came out about 20 years later, which is not exactly all it is. But Little Fuzzy deals with the concept of sentience and sapience. What defines, a truly sentient and sapient species, and centers around a seemingly minor act that just sets off an entire thing. And the Fuzzies are one of the most ingenious and cutest aliens you will ever run across. That you will just go, I like these people. But his whole concept of paratime, which I'm still struggling to, struggling to put together. The whole idea of that governments will inevitably run to their own end. And just a massive scale of galactic proportions.
Yeah.
And these are the kinds of writers that showed up in amazing stories and made, because I think something that you said early on, I think, is what science fiction really is about. It's about taking us outside of the day-to-day, the going to the 9-to-5 job, just the grind that daily life can be, and letting us look at something bigger, something different, something better.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And again, it's one of the reasons why I love it as a genre. 1929 was the year that Buck Rogers premiered. And that one single idea kicked off a whole lot of things going into the rest of the 20th century. It is safe to say that without Buck Rogers, a lot of what we've really come to enjoy in science fiction and a lot of storytelling doesn't happen, doesn't exist.
Right.
Buck Rogers in and of itself, though, is is really a combination of certain things and elements, stories that have been told before. Buck Rogers combines really the hero aspect, meaning a hero story, with more recent events, World War I.
Mm-hmm.
And a character that is also very reminiscent in some ways of Rip Van Winkle, which was a very popular story in and of itself. A little bit of an old folktale. And so combining all of that with science fiction, you have Buck Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it was a way, and with the way that story is told, I mean, nowadays most people would have just, if Buck Rogers were created, later, it would have been a time travel tale.
Right.
But instead, it is not a time travel tale. It is a tale of a guy who falls asleep in a cave, which is very reminiscent of a lot of other adventure stories, the way they had been written.
Right.
Rip Van Winkle is the original one. It's the prototype. but there are other stories that use that. I mean, having a cave be a part of your story.
Iron Man.
Well, not so
But
much
the movie
Iron,
one, the MCU one.
but what I'm talking about is the original novel for A Princess of Mars, which
John
became
Carter.
a film,
Mhm.
John Carter, and using that. And so the original Buck Rogers was that he was a veteran of World War I who was flying planes to deliver mail and other things, and had gotten, I think he landed and had gotten trapped inside of a cave with this mysterious kind of gas that had been leaking, and it put him to sleep. And by the time he woke up, he had made it all the way from the early 20th century to the 24th century. I mean, 25th century.
Right. So he time traveled the hard way.
Yeah, yeah. He slept his way there, basically.
Just by living. It just existed. You know?
Hello, Power Ranger Donnie. How are you?
Long time no see.
Wishing us a happy, belated happy 2026. Hope everyone is well. This year marks the centenary of science fiction and America's first network, NBC. That is true. Without NBC, you would not have had anybody pay attention in school. Anybody without NBC, there would be no.
Come on.
Go ahead, tell us, Keith.
Do
Star
it.
Trek?
Good now.
Man, you guys really didn't pay attention. NBC grew to be so big and powerful that the government was worried that they would have a dominant influence over radio. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the government forced them to create another version of themselves called basically become NBC Red and NBC Blue. And when the government decided that NBC Blue would be spun off to be a separate company, that changed its name to the Colombian Broadcast Company or System, really, Colombian Broadcast System. So that became CBS. So in actuality, CBS is really NBC Blue.
Right. And then did NBC Red become ABC?
No. NBC Red is actually NBC.
NBC. Okay, got it. Okay.
And that was all radio. And then eventually they evolved from radio to television.
Gotcha.
And a lot of their programming, a lot of their hit programming, you talk about remakes and other things. When they went to TV, all NBC and CBS did was they adapted a lot of their hit radio programs and turned them into TV shows.
Sorry, the Fallout reference here is just astounding.
So, as I was going to say, an example of that is Gunsmoke.
Mm-hmm.
Gunsmoke was a popular radio show that eventually became a TV show. You also had Dragnet, popular radio show that became a TV show. Soap operas were actually radio because it was made to sell soap detergent during the radio years and eventually went to TV. So a lot of the popular soap operas actually started as radio shows.
And I'm just thinking, because my girlfriend is very, very, she has to always be doing something.
Yes.
If she did not have television, as something to occupy her brain, we would have the radio going constantly. So, I get that. And having grown up in an era when you did not always have television broadcasting whatever you wanted, you went to radio.
Yeah.
So
that big revival of radio in the 1970s, where you had people doing radio programs. You had the Fire Sign Theater that started in the late 60s and made their way into the 70s, and you had a lot of radio kind of revivals. You also had this thing in the 70s where they were doing radio shows based on comic books. And so you had the Mighty Marvel Hour, I think is what it was called. And they would do, basically they would reenact comic books or comic book stories. And I think one of them was the Fantastic Four, which had a young Bill Murray as the voice of Johnny Storm.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yes. Hollywood impinging on, where a lot of actors are getting their big crossover. Jonathan Frakes started out as one of the earliest jobs he had when he first became an actor was he was a Captain America stand-in at mall openings and stuff. He had to wear the costume and the shield and everything.
That's hilarious. So
yes,
you saw
Real Popcorn Geek. Good news. I heard about that. Jason Momoa is going to star in the Helldivers adaptation. Yes.
I saw that. Yeah.
Who's doing that adaptation?
Lin. Say what?
Who's doing that adaptation?
Justin Lin.
No, what company?
Oh, what? Ooh, I need to look up which studio's doing that. But look, I'm in because it's Jason Momoa with Justin Lin. And
I mean, the whole Helldivers universe is pure satire.
Yeah,
I hope the comedy is good, and I know for a fact that Momoa is good at comedy. But
Momoa can do comedy because he doesn't take himself that seriously.
That's right.
But so going back to Buck Rogers,
yes,
because down that particular freaking rabbit hole.
So guys, I'll be back. I will let you be. Do not despair. I'll be back.
Quick, now we change everything. He comes back. There's clowns. It's the comedy hour. So from Buck Rogers, we get another pulp hero, Flash freaking Gordon.
Yes.
He was a direct result of Buck Rogers.
Yes. And again, I am surprised that no one has decided to do an updated Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon movie. I have been saying for years that both of those are ripe to be retold because, first of all, not that many people have actually read Buck Rogers.
Right. Everybody
that hears that, depending on how old you are, more often than not, you're thinking of the Gil Gerard show and movie.
Right. Yes.
Well, that's an updated 70s version of it that was not a very good adaptation of the story. That doesn't mean it was bad. It was just
it varied wildly.
It varied wildly from the original story. It's one of those situations where if you were to bet your life on being able to answer trivia questions about Buck Rogers, do you think you'd be able to survive if all you knew was the Buck Rogers TV show? Chances are you wouldn't, because first of all, you would fail about how he got there.
Exactly. Because the direct correlation between the Gil Gerard Buck Rogers series and Farscape is closer than the direct correlation between Buck Rogers and Buck Rogers.
Yes. And then with Flash Gordon, while I enjoy that movie, I will. I love that film. But
Sam Jones is a delight. I got to meet
him. The entire cast. The entire cast is fantastic.
Oh yeah,
but it is not a very good adaptation of the original source material. It is the animated series is at least a little closer to the source material, and even that, But if Flash Gordon is such that you could easily do that in New Zealand.
Oh yeah.
If you went to New Zealand, you could find everything you need to recreate the many worlds of Mongo, and it would have to be a production almost on the scale of the Lord of the Rings to bring it to life. But you could do it. You could really do it, because both of them, again, as I said, a lot of story creators, you weren't really thinking about science fiction. You were thinking about combining elements that you were already familiar with. Buck Rogers is really a retelling of the American Civil War. I mean, the American Revolutionary War, done as a futuristic story. And you change who we're fighting against. But it really, all it is that. That's really what it is. And so you have a soldier who sleeps his way into the 25th century, only then to be signed up to join the militia so that he can fight an army that is trying to take America. And we're losing until Buck Rogers shows up.
Da-da-da.
And they've driven the militia and a few ragtag soldiers into the forest that have now overgrown. That's the other thing about the future. There are futuristic cities, but the forests and everything have regrown back. And that's where the rebels hide. So it kind of has their, a kind of Revolutionary War / Robin Hood sort of thing going on. And the good guys, or at least the Americans, are use the forest as their place to hide out and to do random attacks on these occupied forces that are trying to take over what once was the United States. That's Buck Rogers. Okay. Flash Gordon is really about fomenting a major rebellion. Basically, a guy lands, he's got two friends, they want to go home, but the only way they can go home is basically by overthrowing the dictator. That's it. I mean, that's the basic story. And what has always amazed me is that the Flash Gordon comic strips by Alex Raymond are so detailed. And it amazes me that nobody just doesn't use the comic strips in order to tell some really incredible stories. Like I said, you should be able to tell something that basically is on the scale of Peter Jackson doing Lord of the Rings. That's how good Alex Raymond's artwork was and storytelling was for the original Flash Gordon comic strip that everything else is based on. Now, again, the 1980 film, it's its own thing, my friend. It's its own thing. But I think the animated Saturday morning cartoon and the original animated movie that the cartoon comes from are a lot closer to the Flash Gordon material than the movie starring Sam Jones and Melody Anderson. But again, I enjoy it all. I still feel that I think we reached a point where somebody could come along and try to do Flash Gordon straight. Try to do it as if you're adapting Alex Raymond's comic strip. I think you could do it. And I think it would be fantastic.
And yeah, just looking at the comic strip, there's like they had 3 to 5 panels to tell the story.
Yep.
And it just, but it really also tells how the the day, what's what I'm looking for, the views of the day. A girl soldier, why that can't be.
Well, it again, the
Right.
time period. But that's
Right.
one of the reasons why Roddenberry and the writers of Star Trek did what they did with that show.
Mhm.
They tried to create something that could still remain relevant in terms of dialogue and other ways. I think they were more successful, though, when they got to the next generation. The way that they decided to have dialogue and the way that the characters talk and everything else, it's a way of keeping things fresh and not dated, because all of Kurtzman Trek is dated. All of it's just dated. Dialogue wise, it is the worst piece of trash I've ever listened to. It's all people that basically come from today. They talk like they're from, really, they talk from like, they talk as if they were living in 2017. That's something that pulls you out of trying to spend the disbelief of this being a futuristic story. That's part of the reason why Kurtzman Trek does not work as being in the same universe as Star Trek and all of the Star Trek spinoffs. It dialogue wise, it literally is like a group of 5-year-olds trying to write their own contemporary, to write sequels to what Shakespeare put together as far as Romeo and Juliet. That dialogue's going to be rough. They're not even going to attempt it. But it's just going to sound obvious that it's not written by the same author, or let alone people who have an understanding of that.
So, and going forward with that,
Yes.
because going with your timeline, so we got 29. Roger McCarthy's debuts an Amazing Story. Not long after that, Flash Gordon comes out in a different one. So you have 38 to 39 as the beginning of the Golden Age.
Yes.
That's when Campbell basically took over the sounding science fiction.
John W. Campbell, because it's very important to get his name right. John W. Campbell Jr. And I've held the John W. Campbell Jr. Award in my hand. Trust me, the thing about science fiction, guys, is that the people behind it knew how to make some really nice looking awards. I'm telling you. Wow. Yeah.
And so I see why you chose 38 and 39 as the beginning of the Golden Age, because what happens in 39?
1939 was the year of the first World Con, and that was held in New York City. And for those that like to watch our show, that was also where Forrest J. Ackerman was.
Exactly. First cosplayer ever.
First cosplayer, along with all the other stuff he did. Remember, he was a big agent and publisher and other things. And one of the people that he had in his back pocket was a young Ray Bradbury who couldn't afford to go to this event because, they lived out on the West Coast. And the event was being held in New York, and he covered Ray Bradbury's cost of traveling there.
Right.
So, it's kind of neat, that whole, and it's also the year that Batman came out.
Right. So, and I love that the only thing that stopped Worldcon from happening was World War freaking II.
What are you saying? What are you saying?
It's held every year from 1939 until now, with the exception of 42 to 45.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no matter what else is going on, sci-fi was happening.
Yes,
Yeah.
science fiction was everywhere, and again, you have to understand it was really popular. I mean, young people got into science fiction during that period, the same way that they would get into the beatnik lifestyle, or they would get into rock and roll, or they would get into jazz, or they would. I mean, you know, you have to understand how popular science fiction became and why science fiction blew up and became what it is today.
Well, because especially in the beatnik and and the drug era, when LSD was becoming popular. So, because sci-fi, here's the thing about sci-fi: if you have ever gotten the chance to talk to someone who is really stoned out of their gourd, I mean, and I've talked to a few a lot of times at a convention or right after a convention. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell the difference between someone who was tripping or high and someone who was brainstorming. And a sci-fi writer brainstorming, because the concepts, I think, I remember there's a scene with Donald Sutherland, and I think it's in Animal House, where he's talking to one kid. They're all stoned, and he's like, so like the solar system is like an atom in a really big giant, and and so like there's an entire like solar system in my little finger, man, and because sci-fi is it requires so much of you looking at the world differently, looking at what could be, and which fits so deeply within the beatnik and the hippie culture of what could we do.
Yes.
So I think those two were just great. Those two went hand in hand.
I agree. And again, it's growing what is about to happen, laying the seeds and the groundwork for science fiction become this major thing.
Right.
Hollywood would eventually come calling, but they wouldn't be doing that well, in my opinion. A lot of early films just don't have what it takes. But you also have a lot of other stuff going on. By 1948, A.E. Van Vogt, The World of Null A, is released as one of the first science fiction hardback novels. 1950, The Rise of Serious Science Fiction, and the big three authors of Asimov, as in Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, and Robert Heinlein. Again, if you are a fan of science fiction and you've yet to read Asimov, Clarke, and Heinlein, you need to get on it. You really do. You're missing out. There's a reason why those are the big three.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, Heinlein. I mean, they're still adapting his stuff, and Clarke. Oh, geez, Clarke was like the Reed Richards of those three.
Okay, I can see that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Whereas Heinlein was more like the Tony Stark, I think.
Okay, that leaves Asimov as kind of the hot shot,
Yeah, he was. Well, Asimov. Okay, so Asimov. Oh no, I think Asimov was more like the Tony Stark. He was the hot shot. He was the one who did. Heinlein. Heinlein was more like the Ben Grimm of that group. He was, because everything I've read by him is always been a little more rough, a little more, because when you look at his work, it was he was the swashbuckler of the three. to me, to my like
Yeah.
Glory Road. That was Heinlein, right?
Well, he wrote a lot. He was very prolific.
Yeah, he was.
Fact,
He really was.
In fact, one of the earliest Hollywood films was something that a studio got Heinlein to write.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Rocket Ship XM that became a movie. But in my experience, Heinlein's the more colorful of everybody. He's a hardcore dude, but he's very colorful.
Well, he was
very
also, well, he was also military, which
more military than science. He was
exactly.
he was the military guy of the three, whereas both Asimov and Clark were the science guys. They were the science bros.
Right, exactly.
And they Clark was the guy who was very he didn't try to put anything to his stories unless it was something that was, darn it, scientifically just right there. It had to be right there.
Yeah,
whereas
exactly.
Asimov was the guy who could allow his tales to be a little more fanciful, but he always tried to stay with the science.
Right. He tried to stay consistent with the science that he made up.
That's right. So my big three for those three would be like if you really wanted to judge the way they wrote stories, I would say that Clark was Spock, Asimov was Kirk, and Heinlein was McCoy.
See, I would do different, because I would say Clark was Reed Richards, Asimov was more your Tony Stark, and Heinlein was freaking Doc Savage.
What did I walk into?
We're still discussing science fiction.
We're just drawing analogies between the big three: Clark, Heinlein, and Asimov, because so Clark and Asimov were very similar because they were. So first of all, Clark, one of his big things was, he had this he won an award for popular, the Kalinga Prize for popularizing science. Not science fiction, just science. And of course he was British, so there is a certain amount of propriety. Anybody who adds "sir" in front of their name, is a little more proper and all the good things that go with that. Whereas Asimov was the explorer. I mean, he definitely, because a lot of his stuff, like iRobot. When you look at the Robot trilogy, it wasn't so much about the science. I mean, science was a big part of it, but it was about the impact of the science. Yeah,
but you also have to understand that out of the three of them, I think Asimov was the one that was still a scientist and still teaching. He wrote a lot of he wrote a lot. Okay,
God, yes.
of his published works, there's a certain percentage of it that was a majority of what he wrote were scientific papers. Okay, the fictionalized use of that science, I think, was only maybe a third of what he did.
Yeah.
Okay, so he mainly was truly into the science of it all.
Yeah.
And Arthur C. Clarke made sure that, because of where he was coming from, had to make sure that the science had to be there.
Right.
Or else it wasn't in the story. The science had to be there. Asimov was willing to allow the science to help explain some of the fantastical elements, whereas Clarke needed the science to be there to tell the story. And Heinlein was like, Oh, science. Okay.
Yeah. Science, lasers, laser beams, nuclear bombs.
You know, he's the guy that's like, yeah, the science will be there.
Yeah, there's some science that So the funny thing is I think Asimov made more fitting use of one of Clark's laws, any sufficiently advanced technologies and distinguishable magic. Whereas Clark was very much the planner. Heinlein used massive amounts of hand waving. he had a whole mine full of hand waving.
His whole thing was look, Heinlein really was one of the people who set up what is basically called military science fiction.
Yeah.
And his whole thing was really in service of that. Whereas Clark was about trying to write novels that really were here is the science and here's a story we can tell using the science. Whereas Asimov was like, okay, there's science that'll fit what I need this to fit so that I can continue to tell the story. Even though, out of the three of them, he was the actual published scientist. Not that Clark wasn't, but I mean, Asimov really was. He knew that you had to be entertaining. He had to entertain the masses, whereas Clark was, the masses have to understand what I'm saying so they can understand the science. And Heinlein was like, oh, yeah, science. Okay. I get it.
right. Science make better guns.
That's it. That's it.
Well, see, and the other thing with Asimov is what happens when we apply the science. As Clark is going, what happens with the science? And again, Heinlein, science make better guns.
Yeah. The science. Oh yeah. Okay.
How do we use the science? Let's make up the science. But
I mean,
yeah. The thing with Asimov, I think, was he was more about how does the science affect us? How does the future, how does these advances affect us? Foundation trilogy, I think, is a big impact on that, and so is a Robot trilogy.
Yeah.
So is Robot series.
Hey guys, Real Popcorn Geek. Look, let me tell you. Let me admit something. Okay, I have always been a big Star Trek fan. But I'm also someone who recognizes that, again, the basic rule that I live by is if you didn't create something, then really your role is to be more or less like you have been given a sacred duty to at least make sure that how you tell a story is something that could have been something that the originator of said characters and storylines could have told themselves. It doesn't necessarily have to be word for word what they would have done, but it has to be within the ballpark. Okay? You can't do what they're about to do with James Bond and claim that that's something that Ian Fleming would have done.
But then again, you can't write a modern James Bond story in the style that Ian Fleming would have written it because, modern James Bond would not smoke.
Yes.
I mean, he would,
he would have done other things. I think modern Bond could have smoked, but I just don't think that a lot of his attitude. Look, you could have made Bond an incredible adaptation of what Ian Fleming had done and put him in modern day. You just wouldn't have got the same reaction.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, and because you can't write Bond the way Ian Fleming used to write Bond because it's a completely different world.
It is a completely different world, but at the same time, I mean, you can't make that many changes with the character and still call him Bond.
This is really true. And I think there are things that we have to outgrow.
Yeah, and again, It's the same thing with other characters. I mean, I see why Kevin Feige didn't want to adapt everything that Tony Stark is, because there's a lot of Tony Stark stuff he left in the comics. Tony Stark is not. If Tony Stark were a real person, you wouldn't like him very much. You just wouldn't. RDJ gave Tony Stark more of a hipness and more of a popular kind of, hey, frat boy, or you're going to like me attitude. But in actuality, in the comics, Tony was not a very likable guy. He wasn't a bad guy. He just wasn't a very likable guy.
Tony was a dick.
Okay. Yeah, Tony was a dick.
He was an egocentric alcoholic, which RDJ turns around and turns him from an egocentric alcoholic to to a guy with an ego because he can pull it off.
Yes.
He
made him likable.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, I am that smart. When did you become an expert on on nuclear astrophysics? It's like last night. I'll just casually sit down here and just invent time travel. I mean, here's the thing. RDJ, as I present him, even in as early as Avengers, okay, presents as smarter than the Reed Richards that they saddled Pedro Pascal with.
It's interesting that you say saddled him, because I think he's the only actor that would actually be in the movie because of the way they wrote it. No other actor wanted that part.
Right. Well, I think and I can't speak to his, because I really respect Pedro Pascal a lot. But I think that they hampered him by trying to put that too far back, because I'm sorry, when and this is the other thing, Robert Downey Jr. I can word.
Yes, you is.
Yes, I is. I is good at the words. Robert Downey Jr. brought it because you thought you bought that he understood everything he was saying.
Yes.
When he comes in and says, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're trying to do time travel. Well, here's where you did it wrong." And just and him and Mark Ruffalo playing two smart scientists was believable.
Yes.
Pedro,
what? Not the way they decided to write the character and the issue.
Yeah.
The things that they changed in order to bring the character to life for whatever reason.
Right.
So that, I will say this.
Mm-hmm.
The script for Fantastic Four, First Steps, is trash. The version of the Fantastic Four they decided to bring us is trash. It's called Fantastic Four, and these characters are known by those names, but that is not the Fantastic Four. Right. Sue had a better understanding of how to handle the public, yes, but she wasn't the smartest one. She wasn't the one to be flying everything. She wasn't the out-and-out person who did everything. She had what she handled, and you have to show that as being important. The ability to be able to handle the media is not something that you can flippantly do, but she did it because she was good at it.
Right, and I'm not so harsh about that script. But I also think that they managed to do, not the best job with Mr. Fantastic. They saddled Pedro Pascal with some serious deficits.
He wasn't the only one. They did it to all of them. Look, Johnny, Ben, and Reed were not written the way that they were in the comics.
Well,
okay,
and
Sue was given more to do and her character was puffed up to the point to where I'm not saying Sue could never be a leader, but in the early days of the group, she wasn't. She was, her big thing was to be what she was. She was more of an executive type materials. Okay. Easy for her to do that.
Originally, she was designed to basically be a wife with superpowers.
Basically, yes. But
what she evolved to become,
was an executive with the ability to be able to handle the media. She handled all of the stuff that was outside the purview of what Reed did. Reed had to make it all work. He was the brains behind everything. Everything that you saw was all Reed, okay?
Right.
But she had to make it work because Reed had no business sense.
Right. Which in that movie she did. That's the thing, is Reed did all the science. She dealt with the public.
That's right.
And
now,
mm-hmm.
Ben had a natural personality. He was really the most popular member. But because of how he looked, a lot of people were really frightened of him. But Ben's personality was someone of the neighborhood. He was really the most relatable member of the group. And Johnny was a
street boy.
Johnny was just Johnny is a young man who had a natural ability for flight and being able to fly anything that could fly,
including himself.
But no. What I was getting to is who suddenly gained the ability to fly.
Right? Yeah.
That's the reason why he enjoyed it so much. It's like, look, all you guys are just downers when it comes to what you're able to do. I'm enjoying the heck out of this. I have done the one thing that everyone who has ever flown a plane has always wanted to do, which is be able to fly without one.
Right? Well, and basically, I am the jet engine.
Yes. And he, again, the movie took a lot of liberties with those characters. Right. And I'm not saying that you can't have a strong Sue. What I'm saying is their mind doesn't work in a way that would be conducive to solve a lot of those problems. It's really the four of them together working together. And realistically...
which I think you may have missed, because that's the thing is when it came down to it, it was Reed who created this big master plan. It was Johnny who actually appealed to the surfers' innate mortality, humanity.
Which was a change from the comic.
But I think it was a positive change, because it showed something that there's more to Johnny than just being a pilot, that he's actually a decent human being. And Ben was, they kept Ben. I think they did the best job with him, because he was still a Yancey Street boy. He was still,
that's where I disagree with you. They did the worst thing to Ben. They completely just sidelined him. Ben is the kind of guy who could walk the streets and interact with everybody. Okay? Yeah, he looked different. But eventually he did get past a lot of that. And the kids really dug him because they saw to his heart. Exactly. They took a lot of that away out of the movie because they wanted to keep Ben kind of isolated. With Johnny is really every pilot you have ever known. Okay? He's meant to be like that. It's not something that, we got to change Johnny. No. Johnny is, if it can fly or if it can be driven, I'm that guy. He's Baby Driver. He's almost like he's almost really gifted to be able to drive or fly anything. Okay. But his big thing is the fact that he's very protective of his sister. Okay, they have this great family connection, and that really in the comics, it's Sue who appealed to the surfer. It's Sue that figured out the whole human connection thing, because that's a part of what she does. Being someone who has to deal with the media, not just television, but all forms of media, you have to learn how to connect. You have to learn to reach through either your words or actions someone else. And it didn't make sense that they rewrote it badly, in my opinion, to have Johnny be the one to do that, and then conveniently left it so that it was really Sue and Ben flying the spacecraft. Sue being 9 months pregnant, trying to fly a spaceship, was about as believable as me just suddenly one day going, I think I've solved time travel overnight. And it's just, there's just a lot of hokiness. If they had just fixed it to where instead of trying to I'd like to see this and it would be better, you play to who these characters are, you would have a much better film. It wouldn't have done anything different.
What I'm hearing is if they just stuck to what they did in the comics and not changed it.
No, if they wanted to modify something, there's ways of modifying that were more in keeping with who these characters are, rather than changing the characters to fit what they were thinking.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. You don't change characters to fit what you're thinking. What you do is you look at who these characters are and what is more believable for this character to do. Which I think comes down to every fan argument ever. Well, I mean, again, why even call it the Fantastic Four if you're not going to stick to who these characters are?
Right. Well,
that's the thing.
Well, it depends on, and again, it always depends on who's writing it, because
I
know that you could probably go to you or Stu up at Nowheres could go to various adaptations, various writers of the comics, and go, this person screwed them up, and I think that's been the biggest problem, is that also as a writer, I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
Because I learned this writing for Shane.
Yes.
You have got to, when you're trying to write for a different medium, when you're trying to write a character into something, you have to look and again, and I think this is where you and I agree, is that Hollywood is looking to make money, not always tell the greatest story. Yeah. Those writers have to look at who their most likely audience is. So you and I might be going, this is either meh or terrible, but the audience that's going to be going to the movie and hopefully going to the Fantastic Four is going to see something different.
I guess to a certain extent, yeah, maybe. I mean, what I'm saying is this. You don't make major changes to characters that are not yours. You can make changes. You can make changes in the fact that, hey, there's a brand new story using these characters. I'm not saying you have to be slavishly devoted, but you got to keep it within the understanding of within the abilities of the characters. You cannot take a character who knows nothing about science and have them be the one to discover everything and create the machine that fixes everything. That is unbelievable. And that's what they did with Fantastic Four. They took the characters out of their rhythm and changed them. They hijacked who these characters were to fit the story that they wanted to tell, rather than using the characters to tell a story. I'm not saying they have to be exactly like the comics, but they have to use the same kind of writers and instincts that they had originally in adapting Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. Use those. What they should have done was those same writers should have been used for Fantastic Four, and to do that, because Fantastic Four is, again, they're the first family for a reason, and it's a perfect blend of comics and science fiction and adventure. Okay, basically the way that Jack Kirby experienced it when he was working on Challenge of the Unknown, which is where the idea for Fantastic Four came from. And learning how to balance all of that and keeping these characters, at least when you first introduce them, keeping them where they are, so that they can show you why they are where they are and what their skills are. Okay, you can't have Tony Stark be the one to talk about America and prop everybody up. That's not who Tony Stark is. You know, Tony Stark is he's a businessman. He's kind of, as you said, he's a dick. And he's used to being able to get his way with things. You know, under the argument that you've given with the Fantastic Four, it would have made more sense to just go ahead and change Tony. And I'm saying no, it just keep him the way that he was created, but you allow the character to grow within that. Okay, if you want to alter who they are, you need to show growth from there. You don't start out changing the character and then, just ambushing all the fans who are going, hey, that's not quite right. It's not right to do that because you're setting it up to basically blame the fans for not wanting to go down the road of having these characters just be different for the sake of being different. That's not a reason to change, or else you need to change the name of what you're doing.
Well, and here is where I look at it as a person who looks at kind of if I'm the custodian of this.
Yes.
So critically, this Fantastic Four has an 86% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes.
And an A- on the ADOS scale for cinema score from audience members. 7% saying they would definitely recommend it.
Yes.
So on that level, a lot of people, a lot of audience goers liked the movie.
Yes.
It did its job.
It did a job. It didn't do its job. Okay. Your success is in reality truly is whatever you spent, whatever is speculated by the corporation that you work for versus what you actually did, made, and how much money you're getting back. Fantastic Four did not do its job. Fantastic Four did a job.
So how much was it supposed to get back?
They needed Fantastic Four to be a huge hit. And a huge as in they needed to be $1 billion hit because that's what they're used to. Okay? It didn't do that. And part of the pressure is the fact that you had a Captain America movie that was way, way beyond its original budget. You had a Thunderbolts movie that they were hoping was going to be the kind of savior, and it didn't. The movie didn't do what it was supposed to do. That also was supposed to be $1 billion film, and it wasn't. And that's part of the reason why you went through the whole marketing thing with the asterisks. Thunderbolts, asterisks, and then you reveal a few weeks after the movie's open that they're the new Avengers. That didn't even help. And it wasn't like you got an onrush of individuals to go see this movie because they called them the new Avengers. Okay, now you have the Fantastic Four. Okay, this is it. It's Marvel's first family. Well, the first comic books they ever put out. Oh, so you're leaning on all of that to lure everybody in hopes that you can now make the amount of money necessary to offset a lot of the losses. Didn't work. And after everything that's been revealed, some new information that has dropped about what Disney didn't want you to know about Snow White, we're going to get a lot more information about these films. So far, it's all bad. It's all been bad because they've never really told the complete truth about how these movies have actually done. It's taken Forbes to actually reveal, they kind of lied. They kind of lied to the general public a little bit. But that's okay because you felt good about what you watch. I'm not saying you shouldn't feel good about the stuff that you enjoy. If you enjoy it, fine, enjoy it. But understand, there's still a little bit of a distance between, your enjoyment and whether or not something was successful. Those are still two different things. And that's part of the reason why they're having to make all the changes that they had to make to just get us to where we're supposed to go next with Doomsday. This is not the original plan. They had to make these changes because they are losing audiences. That's really what it's come down to. The money's not there. They're not making the kind of inroads with the general public with even the stuff that is quote unquote kind of for free on Disney Plus. Nobody's watching. Now we can try to get away with saying, well, it's audience fatigue. It ain't fatigue. People will watch if they truly enjoy it. They need a huge crossover hit, meaning that they need to get OG fans like me and fans who have never picked up a comic book. They need to get us all back. Okay? So if they can't get us all back, they need to do something drastic to get us all back.
So, and I get, because originally Fantastic Four came out in what, the 50s, 60s,
1960s. 1960s. It was really the start of Stan Lee's version of Marvel. When Stan Lee took over Marvel Comics, that was really the initial sign. Thus, the reason why it's Marvel's first family. It's not because they're a family. I mean, it is because they're a family. They were also the first comic.
Right. Well, and here's the thing, to go with the history of sci-fi. It was in the 60s that we start to get our real revolution of movies like 2001: Space Odyssey and Planet of the Apes.
It was a massive change. Basically, it was you had a guy in his mid 40s with an extreme receding hairline, creating stories about, a family gaining superpowers, a teenager gaining superpowers, a guy who gets angry with superpowers, a guy with a medical condition, basically being in his own version of an iron lung with superpowers, a Norse god who gets to basically live in the human world as a human being, all this stuff. Who at the beginning of the 60s, as I said, 1961, 62, he's a guy in his mid 40s, extreme receding hairline, who by the end of by the beginning of 1970 is a guy with a whole head full of hair, a mustache, and thick glasses. Make of that what you will. But I mean, Stan was a really cool showman.
He was. And
a lot of that was a show.
Right.
And a lot of the people that worked with him didn't exactly like the way that he did things.
Right. Well, and because we're going with the history of science fiction. So with that, in 68, we stopped seeing the cheap models with sparklers at the ends with obvious wires, and we get freaking Space Odyssey.
Yes.
We get space with operatic music. Symphonic soundtrack.
Yes.
I mean, I tend to think that, up until that point, all we see is bad practical effects.
Yes.
And then we get that scene with the shuttle arriving at the space station.
Yes. Yes.
In the utter silence of space. I mean, Space Odyssey managed to capture the magnificence, the magnitude, and the vastness of space. And, to this day, I still can't see that without feeling a certain sense of awe. And that was in 1968. That's almost as old as I am.
Yeah, it still holds up. That film still holds up to this day because of everything that they did to make the film and to make the film look the way that it did. Eventually, some of that would be very helpful in helping to bring to life Star Wars.
Exactly. Which is all practical effects.
Yes. But for television, it was still kind of out there.
Yeah.
I think the only visual effects from the early 1970s that still hold up, in my opinion, are those that were done by for UFO and for its original Next Season, aka Spinoff, or Loose World Connection, Space 1999. Both shows had some of the most realistic space effects out there. But that's because you were dealing with people who knew how to make those kinds of effects because they were used to dealing with marionettes and used to Gambit, Star Trek the Motion Picture. Yes. But that's what, 1979.
Yeah, it's after that. Yeah. So, but likewise, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, also very good practical effects.
Yes. Irwin Allen had a lot of really good practice. In fact, he again, for visual effects on TV, I think Irwin Allen was the king. And
I still remember growing up watching Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Hey, Ariel Bella, come on. No, I love 2001. 2001 is fantastic. I love 2010. I love both movies.
Yeah.
Roy
Scheider was in 2010, right? It was Roy Scheider?
Yes.
And Lithgow?
Yes.
Okay, as I say, I remember those two characters being just, specifically, but and so we owe a lot to those but also Planet of the Apes. My God, I mean, twist at the end, but showing the difference between then and now, and then just kicking off that whole series.
I still say that while that movie is revered and it has a lot of fans, and I kind of like it, it is still, to me, the biggest cop-out in the history of film.
Planet of the Apes?
Yes. Because I'm a big fan of Rod Serling's script that they decided not to really follow and use. And that entire movie was really predicated on saving money after a while. Rather than make Rod Serling's adaptation of the novel, they decided to go cheap and lean on all of the props and stuff they had in their backlot. And since Westerns were the king of the day, that's the reason why the movies looked the way that they did. That's the reason why that was the way it was. And to this day, I keep bumping into people who, I heard it was based on a book, but I've never read it. I've only seen the movies. It's like, well, okay, that's fine. So really, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Because the book is different.
So how does the book differ from the movie?
Oh, greatly. The questions that it asks are slightly different. If you were one of the astronauts, you fell into a world that was perfect. A perfect world. No disease, no famine. They've mastered technology. You've got flying cars. If you found yourself in that world where everything was no war, working to solve longevity for all living things. I mean, it's paradise, with one exception. Humans are the animals of the planet. Other than that, everything's perfect. Would you then work to change it, or would you leave it as you found it? That's the real question. What right do you have to change something if you're not comfortable with the circumstances where it's just you personally? You're not doing any. Look, the humans when you find them are pretty much just slightly above domesticated animals. So it's not like you're really, quote unquote, really doing much for them. Apes have evolved to become the ones that have solved the majority, if not everything, that a planet would have to solve in order to live. They've done it. They cracked the code. What right do you have to change it to fit you? Just because technically you're different than really a lot of the humans on the planet. You physically resemble them. There's everything about you that's the same except for the fact that you come from a different version of Earth. What right do you have to change this entire planet? Like I said, they've solved it. Disease, famine, all of it. They got it right. Are you changing it because you're worried about humans, or are you a little bit jealous and you want humans to join in and be a part of I mean, why are you doing it? Why are you risking it all? Thank you, Ariel. That is the question.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it turns out that was too much of a question, so they decided to turn it into the movie that you saw because it was easier. You know, it's kind of like the book match versus the movie match versus the TV show match. Different things.
Mm-hmm.
On purpose. Different things. It's not all the same. And while a lot of people really do enjoy the television series, very well written, a lot of Emmys, it can be said that they kind of chickened out of asking a lot of the hard questions that were set up from the book and the movie. And then when it came time, the TV show conveniently gets rid of certain characters.
Mm-hmm.
So that the TV show could become what it became, because it was a little easier for them to deal with. Including not having a black doctor. Or dealing with the fact that one of your characters is racist.
Yeah. Which, yeah, I mean, it's like you cut off one good thing and cut out a cancer, and you're just like, you kind of defang the whole thing. But so, okay, where are we here?
Ariel Bellet, yes. The Tim Burton version of Planet of the Apes is a little closer to the book. Although the ending of that was still kind of different in so much as that he arrives in a version of Earth that is kind of like what we have. And that's still a little different. I mean, it's supposed to be an advanced... Okay, you know the way J.J. Abrams presented the future with Star Trek, the way he made Earth? If everybody was an ape in that movie, that's Planet of the Apes.
Now, are you talking about the original French version?
Yes. That's Planet of the Apes. If you had arrived right in the middle of that, what right would you have to undo all of that because you weren't happy with how humans are treated overall? That's the question. It's a hard question. It's not meant to be easy.
Right. So
Okay.
In that version, how did it come that apes were predominant and humans were not?
That is oh man, it's been a while. I don't remember how that happened. But even with me not remembering, I mean, that's really a Star Trek plot, if you think about it. I mean, again, you arrive on this planet, and that's the situation.
Right.
Even if it were Earth, what right would you have to change it?
So from what I understand about the book, basically humans created apes as the simians as servants, and it just basically became intellectually lazy. And so basically the apes took over. And basically drove the humans into camps outside the cities, and then finally attacked the last human camp. Basically, the apes subjugated the humans. So
the apes treated basically the humans
the way humans treated apes,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So,
so I would posit that. It may not have been the perfect society, but also the whole thing is that in that whole thing the story is framed similarly to it's almost epistolary because they find basically this space version of a message in a bottle that tells the story. And then it turns around that the two main characters that you start with are actually chimpanzees, and they basically say, "No, this is too fantastic. Humans able to talk? Oh, don't be silly." So yeah, it's that it is. I get the premise that the apes have basically developed a working society. I would stop short of calling it utopian.
True. Okay. Let me stop short of calling it that. They kicked it up to the next level.
Right.
I
would posit that do humans deserve to be treated the way we treated apes? Does anybody deserve to be treated that way? No. So especially after you get past the first generation of people who used to do it that way. After a certain point, you're going, let's not treat our kids the way we treated, we were treated. But that's the thing with any science fiction. It's like when you get into one of my least favorite science fiction stories ever, Cold Equations. Is based on the idea of, space is harsh and we have to jettison the girl because she made an emotional decision. And I'm going, have you looked at NASA? Have you met NASA who basically has redundancies for redundancies for the redundancies for those redundancies? And then if you took the whole idea, it's like, well, we're in space now, and because I found her now, my Genesis as like, if your calculations are that precise and need to be that precise, you're already dead. And that's I think the problem with that kind of thing is Planet of the Apes was originally published in '63, and the idyllic society that it created was the idyllic society in 1963. I mean the gorillas were like big game hunters, and they took pictures of their trophies, very similar to what humans do. I'm just like, I don't know. Are we? I think that's one thing that makes it difficult for us to look at old science fiction, or what comes before, and try to match it too closely. Try to adhere too closely to it. It becomes problematic in that we have to turn a blind eye to where it was problematic. Yeah.
I mean, again, for me, I really hope that somebody decides to adapt the book someday.
Right.
And so that you can actually have that discussion. Just because it's a hard question doesn't mean it shouldn't be asked.
Right.
You know,
Now, yeah. Now, I don't have a problem with the idea that Serling may have looked at that and go, what if we did it this way and depicted an actual idyllic society? Because Serling strikes me as the kind of guy who would go, what if we did this and made it more morally questionable? You know?
Yeah.
Because I'm wondering if what you're referencing is Serling's scripts, which I fully credit him to go, yeah, let's do this way and adapt it to make it that much more morally questionable as to what we do.
Very well could have. I mean, for me, for my money, I, when I was a small kid, I will say that there's something about seeing apes on horseback. But to be fair, that was what I was kind of conditioned to like, considering a majority of what I saw back then was a lot of Westerns. Because that's what entertainment was. Yeah. And the studio found it easier to make that movie that way because that's what they had. Right. Now, they had originally started out in trying to create certain things that would have allowed them to make Serling's script. They did start out, they went down that road, but they eventually realized that technologically they just weren't there yet. They weren't there yet. They couldn't make the visual effects in a way that would have been cheap enough for the cost of production. And so it was totally a cost-saving measure. They admitted that. And they went ahead and threw out Serling's script so that they could make the movie cheaper.
Right, yeah.
Again, that part I understood. I've worked on things, and I can understand that.
Right.
But my whole thing is, if you're really gonna, you basically spent all this money just to call the movie the same name as the book, but you decided not really to follow the book. Okay. I get that. Happens a lot more than many people think.
Right.
And that's what I mean with Fantastic Four. You spend a lot of money to call it Fantastic Four, but you're not really doing the Fantastic Four. That's fine. Right. That's great. But again, if I were talking to Kevin Feige, I would tell him you shouldn't be that surprised that you have fans that are saying what I'm saying, which is that's just not it. You can create anything you want. You guys are the filmmakers, but don't gaslight me and try to get me to say, that I'm not happy because it's not presented the way that I think. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm criticizing the fact that you've gone out of your way to present something a certain way and trying to convince others that, hey, it's actually like this when it's not. That's all I've said.
Yeah. No.
I enjoy all the actors. I think they're excellent actors. Same way with the current version of Star Trek. All those actors I have never disliked anybody on the show. I think they're all capable. I just think the writers are trash. I think the producers are complete trash because they're not doing what they should be doing.
Right.
They found a way to legally allow themselves to basically make really just a lot of their own, insert material fanfic is really what all this stuff is. It's fanfic.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because they really had enough money to be able to provide cinema quality entertainment.
Right. With
scripts and material that aren't even fit for first graders.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, and I found what you're talking about with the Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes Visionaries is based on Rod Serling's scripts, and it covers exactly what you described. and it asks completely different questions of the original book. Regarding, because I was going, I know Keith doesn't pull this shit out of his ass. There's like,
oh, look, it's my ass, and I'm pulling more shit now.
Yes, Keith does not have an asphalt. That's what he called it. That's he has the whole internet to pull from. But yeah, that's and again, I think Rod Serling's adaptation differs wildly from the source material. Well, not wildly, but it differs considerably from the source material. But I think Serling told a better story, and I think that sometimes that is the thing that we have to look at is, are we telling a better story or not? And I think what we run into sometimes is we're not telling the better story.
Well, again, there is the more entertaining story versus the story that is a, more accurate story versus the story that's a better story.
Right.
And it's the reason why I have fun with Tombstone as a movie, and I enjoy all the actors in it because they are super cool people. Some of my favorite actors in that one film. But I like the Kevin Reynolds, Kevin Costner version better. That's just what I prefer.
Right.
I think that Pop Culture version, Val Kilmer's performance is fantastic. Okay. I think that I think Dennis Quaid, though, is the historically accurate version of the character and medically exactly what would happen with that character, what that character was going through at that time period, because we have records. So you can capture what the actual illness does. But that Val Kilmer had the more pop culture insider take, and he provided all the the fascinating fun parts of it, if you can call it fun. But,
But see, and as a writer, I'll tell you this much: sometimes you have to, in order to tell a good story, you have to fudge a little bit.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with fudging. Trust me, there's nothing wrong with fudging. My whole thing is that
they fudged the Fantastic Four, so
yeah, they did a whole lot of fudging with Fantastic Four.
There you go.
They had a whole lot of fudging with the current version of Star Trek, to the point where you're just flat out changing things. And that's the part that I don't like. You have to understand that when you have set something up a certain way, if you're going to come in and say that you are continuing on or you're adding, I wouldn't do that. Don't say that. Just say, hey, we have some different ideas and we want to present these different ideas. Be honest. Never lie. Don't lie. Just be honest. We wanted to interpret it a certain way to fit what we think is a better story.
Right.
I can get behind that. It's okay. You want to do your own, because it's like not everybody is doing, say, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Not everybody is doing Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. But there are Frankenstein movies. There are Dracula films. If you're doing your own thing, that's great. I love it. But don't try to gaslight me into thinking that that's really what you're doing. Is, I'm adapting the source material. This is what they actually wanted. It's like, no.
Guys.
Yeah.
I like to fudge. I don't like to fudge it like that, but we've been running for quite a lot.
We're coming up on 2.5 hours.
Yes,
we have gone on a lot longer. Again,
believe me, I've been enjoying this. I don't have popcorn, but I would gladly been eating you to get at it. But unfortunately, today I cannot get any longer.
No, it's good. It's all good. Besides which, I've got a new Sims 4 update that
yes, and sees how I've not really been to bed yet. I guess I have to get a little sleep.
The Sandman is calling and beating you over the head, huh?
I know it. He's calling long distance and trying to reverse the charges. What is that?
It's call and collect.
Well, listen, another great episode here. We've had a lot of fun doing this. Again, I am fortunate to get an opportunity to do this every week. And it is an extreme pleasure and privilege to be able to do this with Ben and Martin. You guys are just fantastic. I love you guys, and I can't thank you guys enough for doing this with me. And seriously, just I just want to thank Ariel Billette and Power Ranger Donnie, Black at 25, Shinatsky, Davy Dread, Anima Confusa, Real Wade, Stasis Geek, B312, Awesome One, and Morrow, Gambit, because Gambit's cool. And really, to all of you out there, just continue to be as geeky as possible. Enjoy all the other shows and programs that we have for you here in the Pop Culture Minefield Network. And, as my other twin brother, Robert Meyer Burnett, likes to say, have a better day.
Bye everybody.
Y'all come back now. You hear?
Matt Damon.